You bet.
I'm Jim Fitzpatrick. I'm with Samara Family. We teach a parenting class and work with a lot of families.
Great to see you, Jim. Yeah, it's always fun when you go over, take stuff over to Samara and visit with them. You get to be with Jim. That's wonderful. Right here.
I'm Adriana Vukmanik, also with LivingWell Institute.
Great.
Kathy Sorolla-Frick, also with LivingWell Institute.
Now, can we go online and have those folks introduced?
Hi, I'm Terry Burgess. I'm part of the CPR Backbone. Jim Thompson.
Come on, virtual folks.
Hi, I'm Tammy Schaff. I'm the Dauphin County Early Intervention Coordinator.
Thank you, Tammy.
Hello, I'm April Rudick. I'm the Director of Human Services Initiatives in the Human Services Director's Office for Dauphin County.
Great, April. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shelley Candy, Community Engagement Manager for the Early Learning Resource Center, Community Connections for Children.
Hi, Shelley.
I'm Lisa Ryan. I'm from the Pennsylvania Office of Victim Advocate.
And you're also with the BRAIN team. Great to see you, Lisa.
Great to see you too, Skip.
I'm Lori Susky. I'm the court-appointed receiver for the Harrisburg School District and have been attending the CPR meetings for the last year and a half.
Hi, Lori.
Hi, Skip.
Hi, I'm Rick Feeney. I'm with the Penn State Prevention Research Center.
Hi, Rick. And Jim Thompson, are you with us?
He may be getting ready to board a flight.
Oh, yeah, here. I'm sorry.
There you go.
Yes, this is Jim Thompson. I'm a Harrisburg School Board Director.
39 service to Atlanta. My name is Paul.
Great. Did we get everyone virtually?
Pretty close.
Okay, pretty close. Anybody else virtual that hasn't introduced that would like to introduce? Okay. Also want to mention that Jim Thompson is an architect, and that's what he does in the daytime. The LivingWell folks wonderfully have agreed to do a presentation, but it's not just listen to it. But what we want to do is kind of take it in, think about it, and then we're going to have a chance to have some dialogue about it. What are you hearing? What do you hear that maybe you want more information about? What are you hearing that you really go, I wonder about that, okay? And we're going to break into small groups. We'll try to do that with the virtual group also. They may be one large group. We'll see what happens with that. So I'm going to turn things over to Stephanie, and here we go. And remember the owl for the virtual folks, okay?
Thank you. And if I could ask our team that's helping to present to come stand up with us. Kathy's directing me over to what apparently is the owl. It's an honor to be here today. We're very grateful to be a part of this. It's a tremendous team. We recently became involved in CPR, I would say within the last maybe quarter or two, and just grateful for the work and the leadership that's going on in the community. This is a tremendous opportunity, and I think our goal, you've been introduced to the majority of our team. We have a slide that will go through that. We really believe that what we do at LivingWell, it's a team sport. We're excited to be here, so that's why you see so many of us, and it's a really diverse team. What makes us successful in the community is the diversity not only of our team, but from a collective impact perspective, all of you in the room and joining virtually, that's what makes this actually work in the community. We often talk at LivingWell about 3 E's: education, experience, and environment. And I think we'll educate you, provide you some information about what we do. The experience really is the most important. So you'll see some videos. We really believe our services and our programs and the work we do in the community is best described by those who experience it. We'll shed some light on a few of those, but have some videos. Unfortunately, we did think about bringing everybody with us. We have families and participants, and it would have been a whole bus full of people. And Skip said, why don't you do some videos? Maybe bring your team. Let's not bring 50 people in based on LivingWell. And really the environment, the opportunity to be here in person. I know this group, since COVID, didn't do that. And so I think it's just great that we can be here and have that combined in person and virtual platform. So with that, I'll turn it over to a video that I think our team's hope was gives some background on what is Living Well, what do we do in the community.
There's these two big arms that go like this. And the best part about it is you meet people from all different backgrounds and all different socioeconomic levels. It doesn't matter. Nobody judges, nobody cares. And what that creates is a very comfortable environment.
How do I describe this? It's a place you can come to, or families come to, and it's peace. It's very peaceful and serenity here. I've never had any bad experiences here. I always came here and always had love from everybody. I have always had respect from other people as well as giving it. I was able to talk to people about anything without judgment. It's a feeling I've never had before because I met people that were of all different colors, races, creeds. They were going through the same thing I'm going through. Coming out here, just being able to talk freely about how I feel and know that what I say here stays here. I don't have to worry about when I get back to the city, people calling me, I'm saying, oh, I heard this and heard that about you. I've never had that experience. And it's just a different experience.
The connection, I think, is the key to healing. And that's what Living Well is, like connection to healing.
I just can't stress it anymore that if you're in that situation and you're offered it, please take it. It's just the best place to be.
CSC, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
So I'll start that one over for the folks that are on Zoom, and bear with us as we're managing the combined platform here. Hopefully that gives you a snapshot of what Living Well is, and I would tell you that the participants that got in front of a video camera, that were at our different locations or that were willing to be on camera for these are families that we've built relationships with pretty quickly to have a trusting relationship to not only deliver services, but then to have them be at a place where they would say, happy to have you share this with the community, to be on camera, to be on video, because they see the value and importance of being able to share their story with other people and break down some of those barriers that prevent people from engaging in services. So with that, as I go through this list, if folks could just raise their hand. I know we did an introduction. Dr. Penny Koval is our founder of Living Well, and Dr. Frank Batista, family physician, serves as our medical advisor. Dr. Heather Stuckey has been our primary researcher over the years, doing research and development on the concept of integration. Kathy Cirillo-Frick, master of many trades. She's the president of our board, a nurse, runs our IT. We could go down the list. She covers a lot of bases. Rick Vukmanic is our director of family care, master's level social worker. Adriana Vukmanic is an attorney and also sort of serves as a family advocate, and in addition to many other roles. Again, my name is Steph Eisenbeis. I have the honor of serving as the executive director. Kylie Koval is our director of Living Well Care and an integration expert. Carly Koval, also part of the family, helps support our operations. She's on virtually. She lives in North Carolina. And then Miranda Nixon, right here, is on our care team. She will be leaving shortly. She's going to serve on one of our families, so she's able to stay for part of it. And a Living Well Care team that we wanted to get them all in here today, but they're out serving families in the community. So that is our team, as well as community partners and folks that are in the room that have been a part of what we've done. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Penny to talk about some of the background on conceptually what is integration, where did we come from.
So it's interesting when I think this is the third CPR program I've been to, and the ones prior talked about trauma and different aspects. I think you see our team Integration is taking complex and individual concerns and integrating them through a process. And so there's 7 principles to living well. And the first one is to take responsibility. So no matter what we're doing, whether that's operationally or in serving the families or building relationships with the community, we go through these 7 principles and they're core foundational components that are integrated into everything that we do. And the first one is to take responsibility, to identify and determine who's responsible for what is our objectives, who's going to be a part of that. Then the next one is to renew our minds. And when we talk about renewing our minds, we're talking about not only the process of learning, but also the reality of behavioral health, of other contributing factors that would influence people's minds. Renewing our spirit. Renewing our spirit is not out of the religious context, but actually what makes us come alive. So when we're looking at a situation, whether that's an individual or a problem, what is the essence of that ability to take responsibility, renew your mind, renew your spirit, and then renew your body? A lot of times people talk about living well, and they're like, oh, it's a wellness program. So clearly it's about renewing your body, and it is important to take care of the physical. So then we talk about maximizing your resources. What resources do we have accessibility to the clients that we serve, the partners that we're pursuing and working in relationships? How do we maximize the efficiency and the effectiveness of resources? And I know when Skip says that CPR, we don't do anything. Well, I guess what I would say is that sometimes inviting people of different and varieties of expertise into a place is a very powerful thing to do. And yet, just like you say, you don't do anything, I would say with Living Well, oftentimes when we walk through this integration process, our desire is to maximize the existing resources that are working and effective. And then step 6 is to live life in 3T. That means that integrating all of those former responsibilities and actions, as well as recognizing that in the present moment, we need to figure out what's going on in our head, our heart, our body, our mind, and our spirit. And then the last one is sustainability. How do we do it daily? And so you can take these principles and the wheel. I woke up, so as you can see, many of the people who are on our team, we've been together for years and decades. And part of it is that when we look at reality in a moment, we ask ourselves, what's going on physically, what's going on mentally, and then what's going on spiritually. And so this wheel acts as a virtual tool to be able to sit down with a client or a person who comes in, and they may come from the health system, the community, whatever system, into Living Well. And we use this wheel as a visual to help people recognize, in order to be healthy and whole, you need to take care of those 3 aspects, the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. And then the black dis-ease, it just means the lack of expression of the physiological, the psychological, and the emotional and spiritual. So these tools are the foundational pillars for what we do in Living Well and Living Well integration.
Thank you. And with that, I've asked Dr. Batista to share a little bit. He's been working with Living Well for decades, and I think, again, similar to having our clients or our families describe what their experience has been, I've asked him to share a little bit about when he was in family practice. He's retired now and on our advisory team. What types of individuals and families did he send our way to Living Well, and how did that work? What was their experience?
It's a kind way of saying I'm the old guy up here. And what I can say is that having been trained in family and community medicine, I tried to have a practice over 4 decades that acknowledged that people are not individuals in a vacuum, that you as an individual, as a patient, bring to the office a multifactorial set of problems, concerns, issues, and it was up to me as a family physician, in my mind, to help guide people at least to facing those concerns and finding resources that could help them do something about it. I was one resource, and I felt comfortable with the physical side, to some extent the emotional side. For better or worse, family docs these days are the psychiatrists that the patient sees. But there were other concerns, frequently concerns that dealt with the social, the intellectual concerns that we came up with doctor-patient. And I could comfortably pick up the phone and call Dr. Penny and her team at LivingWell and say, look, here's somebody that can use your services. They were always trustworthy, in my mind. Never had feedback, anything other than they were very helpful. We're so glad you sent us there. And in terms of a working relationship, Skip mentioned it earlier, that relationship that we built over many, many years is one reason why I've come out of retirement to, what do I do?
He has fun with LivingWell.
To be here.
And we're grateful.
Yep.
And I'm grateful to have the opportunity because, you know, after 42 years in practice, you don't want to hang it up completely, but you don't want to work within a system that is just a system and it is not in keeping with what I believe good primary care was all about. So this gives me an opportunity to expand and perhaps contribute with some of my experience in some of the things the LivingWell team does.
Thank you for sharing. And the other interesting thing, Dr. Batista, after he came out of retirement, had more of an opportunity to engage in some of our community programs. So we serve individuals and families in an intensive setting and work on individual plans with them, but we also have access as a community health nonprofit to low-cost, no-cost services. Many of those are group support programs. I'd ask, can you share just a little bit? You came to our farm location, and we do have a video we'll show you about the farm. That's where we have some of our group programs. Again, it's a different environment for people to experience our lifestyle education program. Can you talk a little bit about what you experienced at that program?
The atmosphere is electric. I must say, I came away after my first visit there with a regret that I was too busy for all those years to have spent any time there and to really understand that. There was an openness, there was clearly a trust, not just from the clients, the families, to the LivingWell team, but the other way, that the team could trust in the clients to be participants, to learn, if they didn't already know, how to take responsibility for who they were in an environment that was, as I say, electric. They were fed, they were given opportunities for classes, the families played together. It was a very wholesome, very open experience that I'm sure many of them didn't have in areas other than with LivingWell.
Yeah, for sure. And with that, if you want to show the video for the farm.
My wife first said we was going to the farm. I didn't understand what the farm was because my dealing with the farm was basically what it is, a farm, but I didn't know the whole setting of it. But after being here with my son and watching my son interact with other people, watching how he was able to express how he felt, and seeing him open up like I've never seen him open up before, I understood what it was about.
It's not a typical therapeutic environment. It's like a home base. It's a healing base, a safe base. It's where you connect with other human beings in real life bonding experience, a real life connection, a real life situations that affect within that people tend to struggle with talking about.
Having a child that's, was like severe ADHD and a million other diagnoses, he could not sit still. He was hyper, he was jumping, he couldn't sit at a desk, he couldn't do those things. And other people, including myself, were trying to make him sit still. Right away, she took him out to the farm. She got him busy. And when you put children around animals, it's unbelievable the healing process that happens. Even adults, these kids that are off the charts and have all this energy, they just go around an animal and it like calms them down. Mm-hmm. And they can run, they need to run. They can't sit at a desk and learn, but you can teach them and talk to them while you're keeping their hands busy. We did the garden out there a couple times. He did, I think, stacking wood with her, like things to keep his hands going, which also helped his mind to regulate. So we enjoyed it, and we went to many meals, participated in meals and activities for quite a while at the farm.
Okay, you want to go to the next one? So with this, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Penny and Dr. Batista to talk about the family care model.
So as Frank and I talked about the 7 principles, and we look at that in the context of individual, a process of transformation. What we've discovered over the years is that many of the families we take care of have complicated biopsychosocial perspectives. And so if you look on the left side, if a patient or a client is in the middle and they're accessing resources and they go into the 7 systems that most of the individuals in our culture are exposed to, are the health system, the education, the commerce, which is the business, community, government, criminal justice, and faith and spiritual. And so when we look at an individual and a family, on the left side, you can see that they may access those resources in a day, in a week, in a month, or whatever. And it's very complicated and disorganized. Right, Randy?
Yes.
Randy, as a person who's well aware in the county of all the resources that we have, when an individual who might be highly sensitized, traumatized, frustrated, or just unable to understand what to do, we put a family care model together where we've established a methodology where we do an intake process and we look at the individual and the family members relative to all of those systems. And so some of that has come out of the work that Frank and I have seen when we look at complicated families and all the contributing factors that create stress and ultimately compromise their health and well-being.
I must say, to a great extent, this is what I believe family medicine was primarily about. You know, as a resource for my patients, for the community, was not just to take care of their physical health, but to understand their family dynamic, to understand where they might need social services. One of the many problems in the healthcare system is it is so incredibly fragmented. And you can have the resources in Dauphin County, Cumberland County, up the wazoo, but if people can't get there, if people can't access not just individual services, but having somebody to be their advocate in navigating the various systems, if they don't have that, they don't get the help they may need. And to a certain extent, that's what I could do as a family doc. To a much greater extent, I could refer people that I wasn't able to help, that I didn't have the personal resources to help, to Penny and her crew, and know that they were going to be given the opportunity to get what they needed.
Well, and I think just to let you all know, I mean, when we come into a room and there's a team of living well, some people are like, oh my gosh, my husband refers to this as my posse. But I think part of it for me is that, you know, we use the terms, it takes a village. I mean, we talk about silos and we understand the value of the individual systems and the purpose and the passion for their objectives. But I think our desire, and here today, is to invite people into this process of understanding how do we as a group of people in this region work together. And so we have people that are a part of our team, that are a part of the strategic planning and the implementation of the services that we provide, but we're limited by the relationships that we want and we continue to desire in creating a care model for this area to collectively have influence on the well-being of individuals and families.
Thank you. If you want to go to the next slide, then what we'd like to do is give you an experience of a few projects that we've worked on at LivingWell in the community that really are, to us, strong examples for that integration process and the family care model. The first, I was talking to Randy early on, back in 2018, sort of at the pinnacle of the opioid crisis here in Pennsylvania, Dauphin County approached us and said, would you be interested in providing sort of an innovative add-on to the Dauphin County Drug Court program that really is a long-term program that takes people who have chronic addiction issues and nonviolent criminal offenses and give them the opportunity over 26 months to really make significant change for lasting not only recovery, but functional independence. So we'll share a video of a participant with you so you can experience that program.
The traditional approach and the LivingWell approach together are good. The traditional approach focuses so much on trying to stay clean and not using, whereas I think LivingWell has opened up the doors and can open up the doors for people who want to get to some of those underlying issues as to why they're using drugs, as to why they feel so bad and why they're so depressed, and, you know, bring them into a whole different part of being in recovery. Because without, sometimes it's easier to not use a drug than it is to actually live a life in recovery. Because their lives, as they know it, I mean, using a drug and just shielding all of that pain and all of that sorrow away, there has to be a time that they come to grips with all of that. And a lot of times in traditional recovery, it's more focused on don't use the drug, don't use the drug, but why were you using the drug to begin with? And trying to figure that out. You know, and being healthy and getting your mind together and your emotions and having a belief in something better or higher than yourself or even the drug can just make them, I feel, just be so much more open to living a good life and not just a clean life. I can be me and say the things that are on my mind, and sometimes, well, not sometimes, I just don't always feel like I need to filter them. And I know that if I am unfiltered on one phone call and then 30 minutes later turn around and call them back, they're still going to answer, they're still going to be there. And this journey with my son has not been easy, even with LivingWell, but that has nothing to do with them. It's him and the choices that he's made. I may have stepped into LivingWell because of my son, but I got so much out of it for myself, and I retained a relationship with them and a community with them. And with or without him, or with the ups and the downs, I know that I can count on them and they will be there.
Okay, next, it can go to the next slide, Adriana. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Rick and Kathy to share about the work we do in the area of family restoration.
So as I said before, my name is Rick. I had the honor and privilege of working for Dauphin County Children and Youth for 29 years. And I started as a caseworker and I retired as an assistant administrator. So I got to see what it was like working in the child welfare system. And I know that the goals of child welfare, when I was there, they're probably still the same, were safety, permanency, well-being, and family preservation. And the county, the agencies across the states are really good at keeping kids safe and really good at finding permanent homes for kids. But that one place where we weren't really good at, and the federal government's review of all the states showed that well-being is that gray area that we really can't hit, and can't really put a nail on what it is. And I found through this program that there was a way to kind of start to approach that, that taking responsibility for something and then renewing yourself and becoming well in mind, body, and spirit. And by starting to approach that idea of well-being, it helps sustain children being safe. It helps sustain children living in permanent arrangements. So when things get tough, there's a place for families to turn and a way to have support. Dr. Batista, a lot of other people on the panel talked about how resource-rich Central Pennsylvania is. That's a gift, and it's also a curse. Because sometimes what I would see is families had so many services that they could play rummy with the business cards. And this idea that Dr. Penny has of integration is a way to take all of these different services, kind of sort it out, and figure out a way to have a plan that a family has that they can navigate, that all of the services can come together and kind of talk about. Because each system has their own gifts and their own things that they're not able to do because of requirements. So I really think that this is a way to bring together a team of folks and have a lasting kind of impact on a family that can be sustainable.
Moving to the out. So I like data along with a lot of other things, but one of the things we recognize when we're serving this community is when we first started, we were getting clients that were just had a singular problem, sort of a unidimensional. They don't know how to do parenting. They have a drug or a stress problem. They have a trauma problem. And we had few complex cases. And then we had COVID and we saw isolation happen. And what we know now is that trauma underlines everything. So while we have a few that we just know need some parenting skills and we need to help them and sort of work through that, or some stress and we just need to help them navigate that, we also know that complex cases now has just the underlying trauma, and there's so many other things. So that's why part of using that family care, it just makes everything pull together and works. And it helps, just as Rick says, decrease systemic dependency, because we really can pull the resources together.
Thank you. You could go to the next slide. So one of the things we hope that you're seeing by now is that there's a common thread of what we do at LivingWell, which is to help promote well-being and then to address the needs that are in front of us. So we've adapted as a group and as an organization to meet the changing needs of our community. Harrisburg School District approached us year before last and asked, again, coming out of COVID, they were a district that had kids remote a little bit longer than some of the other districts and also had some challenges that predated COVID. And they came to us and said, would you be willing to serve as sort of an integrative resource within the district to establish a Tier 1 resource alliance? Tier 1 in the school system is that everyone should have access to it. It's sort of a universal approach for universal needs. What we found after being in the district and working to develop that over the first several months is that there was an immediate and pressing need that was at 2 of the elementary schools. There was a chronic teacher shortage, people were calling off, and I think the superintendent and leadership at the school were concerned to have to send middle school. Middle school was already being sent home from Roland, but to send elementary school kids home during the middle of a work week with many working families, it just would have been really challenging, and they didn't feel confident in being able to do that. And so they approached LivingWell and said, would you be able to shift gears a little bit as you're developing this alliance to meet this need? And with that, I'd love for Adriana to share. She provided a lot of leadership in helping to develop that alliance as we adapted to meet the changing needs in the district.
Well, I think that the other common theme that Stephanie and my dad and everybody else said, that Harrisburg is resource rich. There's a lot of people that want to help. There's tons of organizations, tons of nonprofits. The system's here, the capital is here. But so what we did in the first part of the project, like Steph said, is we went and met with all the Tier 1 resources we could find. So we had close to probably 200 partner meetings throughout the year of our contract. But with that, with those relationships, we saw that we should utilize those community members that we've already developed a relationship with to come in and help and meet the need of these two schools. And yeah, so we brought them in. We brought them in from the community, and this is one of our classroom leads. This is Sonia. She is a founder of a nonprofit, Harrisburg resident, grew up in Hall Manor. So I just want to kind of play her video to tell her experience.
When you step into a child's life and begin to show them something different, their mindset becomes different and they begin to think different, like, oh, okay, you know, I can be that artist, or oh, I can be that doctor. That's the beauty about LivingWell, because they gave us the opportunity to, you know, uniquely be ourselves. We came in with our different, you know, unique skills and where we came from, and you know what we've been doing individually, and you know that made it even better because it gave us a better understanding that, you know, we were once those kids in one shape, form, or fashion, and that, you know, our little kids go through so much on a daily basis, but going into the classrooms, you know, tackling the challenges and being able to build relationships with each student, you know. And at first it was just like, you know, they were kind of looking at us like, who are you? But every day it got easier. Every day it got better because we got to know them and we got to build relationship with them and we got to see them, you know what I mean, in their own self. And so, you know, being part of LivingWell and, you know, creating this atmosphere and this connection that we did with the children, that's something that's not going to ever change.
This program, you were involved almost on a day-to-day basis with our team in the classrooms, and talk about what came out of that program.
Sure, and I just want to kind of talk a little bit about some of the points that Sonia made. Initially, one of the big criticisms was, what does a group of folks from Hershey know about an inner city school? And what we actually just did is use this concept of integration, and we served as a conduit. So it was never our intent to be the service provider, the delivery of service in the district, but instead to serve as a bridge, to bring folks who really lived in the community, had an interest in the community, had specialized skills, and wanted to give back to the district that they went to. And we actually were able to do that. But once we got there, we realized that there were some challenges that maybe we didn't anticipate would be as severe as they were. Children in Harrisburg School District were doing some virtual learning for about 2 years, and we didn't realize how strong an impact COVID had developmentally on those children. So we were in 4th and 5th grade, but what we had to remember is that many of them missed 2nd and 3rd grade. So they weren't able to do or learn those either social skills, how to navigate life, even fine motor skills. So how then do we take those concepts, teach them in a way that would be fun, but at the same time would be challenging, and at the same time meet some educational needs? So we came up with an idea to use a concept over a period of time, maybe a couple weeks. So the first one was togetherness, or connections, because we realized that the children didn't have a relationship with each other. They didn't have a relationship with their teachers, because very often teachers were stressed and were leaving or being replaced, or kids were being combined in different classrooms. They didn't have a relationship with the school. So I was thinking, what can we do to teach connectedness? But we also have to start to teach decision-making. We have to teach fine motor skills. So I thought of an idea of a mat, because if you have a mat, or a web, depending upon how connected the different pieces are, things can fall through. So what do we do with that? Well, we used a piece of paper, and we made stamps with some paint. And a young person had to decide how to make a pattern with either the stamps that we had, or the side of the stamp, or the colors. And at the same time, we were trying to teach them about some culture. So I was thinking, where in the world do people make cloth that's woven together? So we thought about kente cloth. So we started to talk about that. And the first group of kids made this pattern, and then we took it away from them. They're like, well, what are you doing? We're like, well, what we're going to do is we're going to give it to another group. And that group of folks sliced them up. And then yet another classroom came back together and took the different pieces and started to weave it, so that we could show that while one group of students created the initial pattern, finally, maybe it was a 3rd or 4th classroom that was actually able to make the final product. And they got to work together, and they got to explore a culture. They got to explore art. They got to do some fine motor skills. They had to navigate and negotiate with each other, and learn to work together. At the same time, it was kind of self-regulating, because somebody wasn't just preaching at them. They were able to do some really hands-on things. Now, some of our teachers in the beginning, and some of the district teachers are like, what are you doing? Like, you're making a mess, like you're playing with paint. But there was something very powerful about this hands-on things. And that's kind of what we did. We explored a bunch of different cultures, and we did a lot, really thought about how we can do things hands-on. Now, what did that do? I think the other part that Sonia talked about, and the whole beginning of this talked about relationships. The children were able to establish a relationship with the classroom leads that came in, because they knew they were going to be there every afternoon over a period of time. We did alternate classroom leads across the classrooms for a week, so that the children got a rich experience, but they still saw those same classroom leads in the classroom, and they knew they would be back the next week to do a similar activity. For me, one of the most powerful things was, so I don't look like most of the kids in the school district. I grew up in Steelton. So the odds are that, from what the naysayers were saying, is there wouldn't be a relationship. My first day there, there was a lot of chaos in the hallway, and we were trying to stop kids from running from one end of the hallway to the other. By the end of the year, that wasn't happening anymore, and children were able to be regulated. In the beginning, people were saying, you're not my mom, you're not my dad, don't touch me, I don't have to listen to you. In the midst of this program, I was diagnosed with cancer, and I had an operation. And I didn't know that the kids knew that. They just knew that I wasn't there. And I remember coming back in April and walking down the hallway, and one of the most challenging students, she would often be found in a hallway, standing on a chair, saying some really rude things. So she was standing in the hallway screaming at everyone that would walk past and talking about their grandmom, and because we learned that's really offensive to talk about a grandmom. But it also helped that I looked like a grandpa. So in the midst of this, I'm walking, and she went, "Rick, what are you doing here?" And like she just stopped. And I'm like, "I'm back." And she goes, "It's so good to see you." And so you have to excuse my language, but she yelled through the hallway, "Don't fuck with him, he's stapled back together. You better leave him alone because we need him to be here." So while there was some inappropriateness in that, there was a relationship. And I think that's what this shows, that someone cared, someone taught some competencies that hadn't been addressed. And the competencies, for the most part, were taught by people from the community that they got to know. They saw them in the community, they got to go visit them in the community, but at the same time, those of us who just happened to be there also made a relationship. And our intention all along was to just be there, to start this, and then to hand it off. And not that we're not interested, but there might be another place that we can go and help. And so besides working at Children and Youth, that was probably my most, most honorable thing that I felt like that I could do for a long time. So thanks for letting me share a little bit about the program.
Thank you for sharing that. And I think what you'll see in the next slide, and this is our next slide before we go to the breakout sessions, is that foundationally what we do at Living Well is build relationships. And just like this Kenta clock here and that level of connection and collaboration for the youth, same thing with the adults and the providers in the community, that we recognize if we don't have that kind of a net as a community, people, families, systems are bound to fall through the cracks. So we'll share the video here.
Yeah, for us, our tagline is "We're bigger together," and our philosophy is that when we bring together community organizations and the people in the community working to serve our most vulnerable youth and families, we can do so much more together. The Harrisburg Resource Coalition is a group that it's coming together and sharing resources and sharing expertise, knowledge, so that we can go out there and fill in any gaps that our community is experiencing around basic needs, around education, healthcare. If we put everything together, we can make sure that we're serving our entire community better.
So with that, Adrian, if you could go to the last slide. I would let you know, before we go to the breakout session, I want to thank our whole team for helping to provide a presentation together. We do these types of things together. This is the first time we've had such a coordinated effort, and as you can see, we're passionate about what we do. So this has been the most condensed version we're capable of delivering to you because we're all excited about what we do. I would tell you, if you look at what's on the table, and for the group that's on remotely, we are going to send this to you. You have our lifestyle education program. We've done part of our group, so Dr. Stuckey, Dr. Coble, I can't remember if Dr. Batista was a part of it. We provided a training at Penn State Cancer Institute years ago, and we recognize for all of us doing this work in the community, the importance of caring for you so you can care for others, it's foundational. So this is something that's open access, it's on our website, has our 7 principles. On the back is a calendar, which I would tell you that everyone on our team regularly dusts off and actually gets a pen out and actually tracks what we're doing to take care of our well-being, because we can't pour out from an empty cup. We recognize the work we're doing in the community is challenging. So that's for you to take with you. We've selected 3 different topics. You're welcome to discuss these at your table. Skip has told me that everyone has free reins. You can talk about one of them, you can talk about 3 of them, you can talk about none of them. But in summary, out of our conversation, really the idea of individual and family restoration, the idea of a family care model and working across those systems, and then experiential programs that give those folks in our community a way to taste and see what something different could look like, were ideas that we thought would be great to talk about.
Good stuff. We're going to take about 10 minutes. We had wanted to do about 30 minutes for breakouts, but we started really late, and I apologize for that. So we're going to take about 10 minutes, wherever you happen to be. For instance, Lisa might want to join this group over here. Claude might want to join the group over here. And the online group, that there'll be a group together. And what we'd like you to think about are these 3 ideas that Steph just mentioned. Think about, is there something I'm interested in? Is there an aha for me that I've heard? For instance, like the 7 LivingWell principles. Do you want to know more about that? The model that's being used, is that evidence-based, for instance? So those kinds of things. And what we'll ask each group to do, and there should be like 3 groups, give us a quick report out, 1 idea, and then we're going to begin to wrap up, and we'll have an opportunity to come back together. Any folks that might be interested, we'll be following up with an email out to everything. Okay, does that sound all right? So we'll go take about 10 minutes, get in your small groups, and then we'll ask you to report out real quick.
Good.
Stick the questions back up for the
Yes, I know them. I need to.
You don't have memorized anything?
No, thanks.
I need to get them off.
This is not a test, it's just a time to share.
Yeah. We don't want to attach it to that.
Yeah.
It's a life, I guess.
It's good to do examples.
And it's okay to offer like, I'm really concerned about this that you said, or I don't believe this. That's okay too. What we want to do is have some fun. And don't be overwhelmed with the LivingWell folks.
Yeah.
You're the stars, the LivingWell folks are the listeners.
Questions, concerns, interests?
So I guess that probably, the thing that I'm the most, I mean, it's all wonderful. Practically, trying to understand, like, as far as the partnership with CYS, like, how does the family, like, restoration, like, using the model, like, how practice, like, the practicality of, like, how that looks.
So I like the other example as well, and I obviously can't use names, but I've worked with some families that, one, they walk through our office or we meet them in their home or whatever, maybe knowing that they come with a past trauma of dysfunctional families that they probably came out of as well. And also a lack of support or tries to turn towards the family that they probably wish they had or whatever that may be. So I think it's working back to say, how do you heal and recover and learn to trust again in supportive relationships, and if there's reasoning and justifiable reasoning as to why they are guarded, and questioning, can I turn towards you and actually invest in this relationship, and then also say, where do you want to go then? So starting from ground zero to say, how can we build trust and relationship and work backwards so that you can move forward, and knowing that there's also, they're building a relationship with me, as well as maybe their PO, as well as family base. I mean, there's other people that they're, I don't want to say bombarded with, but that they're trying to see, trust this person, can I work with this? We all have behavior patterns that specifically focus they may not want to or choose not to. And even, I think for me personally, trying to pivot and turn towards the other services and let them know what we do, what we're trying to accomplish. That is probably my biggest gap with the families, is that I try to call 5 other service providers and say, can we schedule bi-weekly provider meetings? Can we get on the same page? That way this family looks like we're together and we're not divisive, that there's, everyone's goal is either reunification or to walk through the process of TPR, to walk through the process of recovery. And so the barrier that we find, that I find personally, is that getting everybody on board, getting them to invest in the time, getting them to invest in the relationship,
knowing that they're working on the relationship with the individual, and now the individual has 5 or 6 service providers that we're trying to also form a bond to support the needs of the family. So I think our team has been very capable of building those relationships with the individuals through one-on-one sessions, to taking them out of a place, an environment that is traumatizing, that is overwhelming, that they're already disconnected. So in their home or in an environment where they don't feel that they can really be still and connect with you, we'll move them to the farm, we'll take them somewhere where they can be able to kind of hopefully relax a little bit, and then start to kind of work on building that relationship.
That relationship is that first piece, but it's also then being able to take that individual. I know we talked about this even last night, but and here, when you have so many services coming at you and you're just kind of you're in that stressful situation and you don't necessarily know what the next step is, like that's where we feel come in and say, let me help walk you through these steps. And we go like this. And like this is kind of trying to really hold them as like as hard as possible. Say, we're going to go through this. First step is responsibility. Did I fill out all my forms? Did I make my appointments? Did I go to these? And we'll go with them, take them until they're able to get transportation on their own, learn the bus route, learn any of these things, so that it can be sustained, because you can't just do everything